All right, shalom, shalom. It's Brother Yatazadak, hero of Israel. I'd like to start off by giving honor and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Wadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone. Today we're going to go into Habukkuk chapter 3, and going to do a quick breakdown through the power of spirit of Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Wadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone. Let's get right into it. All right. Because you're going to learn that the Holy Bible speaks about regeneration, right? The scriptures speak about, right, the day of the Lord, right? His indignation being poured out upon the nations, upon 2/3 of our people, upon Esau, Edom, which is the wicked of the earth, which is a so-called white man, right? And the coming of the charagma in these latter days, right? Before all hell breaks loose, right? The third woe, we know that the charagma has to be instituted, right? So while we're hastening that day, right, our job is to keep pushing his word, keep expounding on the prophecies, right? And so let's get right into it. Habakkuk chapter 3 and verse 1. And it reads, a prayer of Habakkuk the prophet upon Shigayanoth. Verse 2, O Lord, I have heard thy speech and was afraid, right? Because the former prophets, right, have heard, right, through the visions, through certain revelations, right? They were given knowledge of the end of Esau Edom's kingdom, right? Which wasn't necessarily what they were told directly, right? Like scriptures say, right? They have eyes, but they do not see, right? Ears, but they do not hear, right? Lest they should hear with the ear and be converted, right? Or something to that extent, right? So, and the scriptures also say that, right? The Lord has spoken through his people, right? So-called Black, Hispanic, and Native Americans, which are the Israelites, right? Through the spirit of the former prophets, right? So it says, O Lord, I have heard thy speech and was afraid. O Lord, revive thy work in the midst of the years, right? So we know through the process called regeneration, right? We know the prophet Habakkuk is back in these latter days as well, right? So this is what compels us to preach the word, right? To bring out the gospel, which is salvation to the elect, 2/3 of our people being destroyed in America, Babylon the Great, right? So it says, O Lord, I've heard thy speech and was afraid, right? So that is what has compelled us, right, to come into this truth, right? Hearing, right, the word of the Lord, right? Knowing who we are, knowing that these things must be so, right? Scriptures say we have entered into other man's labors, right? So that is what we are doing, right? We're hearing the voice of the Lamb, right? We're compelled, right, to go into these prophecies, right, to give insight, right, and do the work, right? So let's go to John chapter 10, right? I was going to do another breakdown on that, but got to do lessons within lessons. This is the book of John, chapter 10, and verse 1. Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that entereth not by the door into the sheepfold, but climbeth up some other way, the same is a thief and a robber. Right? So the scriptures speak about what? Those that push, right, the law, right, the word for filthy lucre's sake, just like in the time of the ancient Roman Empire, right, which we are on the second Rome, we are in a spiritual Egypt, Sodom and Egypt, right? Um, so you have men that do this for filthy lucre's sake. Habukkuk Hamashayak, when you call Jesus Christ, he said, beware of the leaven of the scribes, the Pharisees, and the Herodians, right? So you got other camps walking in that Pharisee spirit, right? Which is why, right, there's so much pushback against the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, because we are pushing as it is written, right, and doing these things which we have been commanded, right, which is not to show respect to persons, right, not to hold hate in your heart against your neighbor, right, which is what you see with these other camps, right? Matthew chapter 5 says what? To forgive your brother and then offer your gift at the altar, right? So you got a lot of high-minded spirits in these latter days, right? The same are thieves and robbers. They don't care for the sheep. They are hirelings, right? And the day is coming, right? Like it says in the book of Zechariah, that the sheep will be scattered, right? Because you're gonna have the coming of the famine of the word, right? You're gonna have things escalating, right? And right, our job, right, is to be that watchman, right? Just like a shepherd watcheth over his flock, right? And we have a shepherd, which is Yahushai, right? But the shepherd, right, there's an order to things, right? So ultimately, right, we're doing, right, the work of the Lord, right? We have, right, one head, and that is Hamashayak, right? So it says, but he that entereth in by the door is a shepherd of the sheep, right? And you even read about that in the book of Ezekiel, right? Let's get that real quick. I don't want to go too much into it, but hopefully through the Spirit you get what I'm saying. Right, because you have men in these latter days, right, going into all kinds of contentions about the law, but they don't keep the law, right? Contentions about, right, elders that have been in this truth, right? When you have King David, right, he fell off, right? Committed adultery, right? Had much blood in his hands, right? You have, right, other men in the scriptures that have went off. Solomon, right, practiced witchcraft, right? He meddled, right, with other knowledge, right? But then you have men, right, like men in Sakari, right, talking down on dead men, right, on people that have been in this thing before them, right? You have other contentions like, okay, you know, so and so is so and so, when that doesn't really matter, right? Or you know, what is it? Just folly, right? Um, so let's get that in the book of Ezekiel. All right. I believe that's in the latter end chapters. Right? Let's get that. Salakia. see if I can get that real quick. This is Ezekiel chapter 46 and verse 1. Thus saith the Lord God, the gate of the inner court that looketh toward the east shall be shut the 6 working days, but on the Sabbath it shall be open, and in the day of the new moon it shall be open. Verse 2, and the prince shall enter by the way of the porch of the gate without, and he shall stand by the post of the gate, and the priest shall prepare his burnt offering and his peace offerings, and he shall worship in the threshold of the gate. So it says, Ezekiel 46 and 3, likewise the people of the land shall worship at the door of this gate before the Lord in the Sabbaths and in the new moons. Right? Let me look for the verse I was looking for. Ezekiel 46 and 8, and when the prince shall enter, he shall go in by the way of the porch of that gate, and he shall go forth by the way thereof. But when the people of the land shall come before the Lord in the solemn feast, he that entereth in by the way of the north gate to worship shall go out by the way of the south gate, and he that entereth in, actually verse 10, that's what I was looking for. And the prince in the midst of them, when they go in, shall go in, and when they go forth, shall go forth. Right? So who has gone forth, right, before us? That is Yahushua, right? The things that he spoke, right? Right? And the prophets are back in regeneration. So what we're doing is we are confirming what was already spoken, right? We're expounding on the things written, right? Which is why it says Ezekiel 46 and 2 that the prince shall enter in by the way of the porch, right? The priest shall prepare the burnt offering. So that's what we're doing, right? We're ministering the word, right? Preparing, right, the sacrifice, which is a living sacrifice, right? Which is the thanksgiving of our lips, and right, sowing, right, the word, the seed, which is the word. Let's go back to the book of John, chapter 10. So, you know, not trying to get go too deep, but just to give it a little sense. So it says, John chapter 10 verse 3, to him the porter openeth, and the sheep hear his voice, and he calleth his own sheep by name, and leadeth them out. Right? So you have what? The shepherd, right, which goes forth. You have the porters, which are the doorkeepers, right? And that is what we are. We are doorkeepers, gatekeepers, right, into this knowledge, right? And that is the purpose of preaching his word, right? The sheep hearing the voice, right, which is the prophecies, right, being sealed in your mind, right, knowing that the law does not justify you, but faith and works go hand in hand, right? which is why the law says to what? Bind them as a sign between thine eyes and upon your hand, right? So this is what Paul the Apostle spoke about, right? Those that justify themselves in the flesh, right? Meaning the works of the law, right? The outer man, right? So it says, and he calleth by his own sheep by name, and leadeth them out, right? Just like in the wilderness, Yahushua, right? That angel, right, led the children of Israel, right? Delivered them, right? The waters were cleaved asunder, right? Egypt was failing because of the pestilence, right? Before the children of Israel got delivered, led them right through the wilderness, the waters being parted, right? That spiritual rock, which is Yahushua, right? Moses smiting the rock, waters gushing forth, right? Which is his knowledge, right? This is St. John chapter 10, verse 4. And when he putteth forth his own sheep, he goeth before them, and the sheep follow him, for they know his voice, right? St. John chapter 10 and verse 5, and the stranger will they not follow, but will flee from him, for they know not the voice of strangers, right? It says, St. John chapter 10 and verse 7, then said Yahushua unto them, again, verily, verily, I say unto you, I am the door of the sheep. All that ever came before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not hear them. I am the door. By me, if any man enter in, he shall be saved, and shall go in and out and find pasture. The thief cometh not, but for to steal and to kill and to destroy. I am come that they might have life. Right? So that's what certain of these camps do, right? They cause the flock to err, right? That they might have it more abundantly. I am the good shepherd, and the good shepherd giveth his life for the sheep. But he that is an hireling and not the shepherd, whose own the sheep are not, seeth the wolf coming, and leaveth the sheep and fleeth. Right? And that is essentially, right, Esau, right? Because you're gonna have, right, persecution, right, travails increasing, trials of your faith, right? And it says, and leaveth the sheep and fleeth, and the wolf catcheth them and scattereth the sheep, right? And that's what's going to happen in the famine of the word, right? The sheep are going to be scattered, right? Understanding will withdraw itself, right? The sun and the moon being darkened, which is wisdom and understanding fleeing from the earth, right? Which is happening little by little, just like Jacob's trouble, right? But it's going to increase, right? Salakia. It says, I am the good shepherd, and know my sheep, and I am known of mine. Right? John chapter 10, verse 16. The other sheep I have, which are not of this fold, them I must bring, and they shall hear my voice, and they shall be one fold and one shepherd. Right? So that's really going into something else, but the point is, right, the first few verses, right? So I may have went into that a little too far, but right. So that's what Habakkuk, the prophet Habakkuk, heard the speech. He was afraid. He was compelled, right, to keep his charge. So it says, Habakkuk 3 and 2, O Lord, revive thy work in the midst of the years. In the midst of the years, make known, right? Which we are in the midst of the years, right? The Great Awakening, right? The midst of the years, right? Which is the latter days, right? Not like it says in the book of Wisdom of Solomon, right? When he said, I've been given knowledge of the times, in the midst of the times, and something to that extent, right? That's not what it's talking about. The midst of the years here, right, is right when the truth is being right revived back in the earth, right? The wrath coming, right? The Lord's indignation, right? Jacob's trouble, right? The great tribulation, right? Habakkuk chapter 3 and verse 3. God came from Teman, and the Holy One from Mount Paran, Salah. His glory covered the heavens, and the earth was full of his praise. Right? So when did that happen? That happened when the law was inscribed, right, and handed and given unto the children of Israel, right? Which Israel was one of the last nations to be established, right? The youngest nation, right? And right. So what happened? Right? Israel received the law. They went off, right? Went into various captivities, right? Did worse than the heathen, right? Habakkuk chapter 3 and verse 4. And his brightness was as the light. He had horns coming out of his hand. There was the hiding of his power. So this is what Israel saw in the wilderness, right? The horns coming out of the hand is out of the chariot, right? The laser beams, right? Before him went the pestilence, and burning coals went forth at his feet. Now, what does that remind you of? That is what is happening in these latter days. Pestilence is coming forth, right? Division, the sword, burning cores, or Salakia, burning coals, right? Which is what? The ICBM missiles, right? Thermonuclear destruction, the elements burning with fervent heat, melting with fervent heat. Habakkuk 3 and 6. He stood and measured the earth. He beheld and drove asunder the nations. And the everlasting mountains were scattered. The perpetual hills did bow. His ways are everlasting. Right? And that's what is going to happen, right, at the second coming of Hamashiach Yahushai, right, driving us under the nations. Really, they're destroying themselves because, right, of the great division, right, perplexity, right, men's hearts failing for fear of the things that are coming upon the earth, right. A man, his own household being his foes, right. And it's going to get worse, right? You're going to have, right, like it says in the book of Luke, one grinding in the mill and one, right, one Salakia. Let's get that actually. Actually, we don't have to do that. One grinding in the mill and another taken, right? You're gonna have, right, father delivering up the son, and right, because things are gonna get desperate, right? The situation is going to, it's not getting better, right? So it says, Habakkuk chapter 3 and verse 7, I saw the tents of Cushan and affliction, and the curtains of the land of Midian did tremble. Right? Because this is what is going to happen, right? The tribes of the earth will mourn, right? The earth is going to shake, right? The mountains, right, being melted with the blood of the slain, right? Men being drunk with blood, right? Because, right, things are going to get crazy. Habakkuk chapter 3 and verse 8, was the Lord displeased against the rivers? Was thine anger against the rivers? Was thy wrath against the sea? that thou didst ride upon thine horses and thy chariots of salvation. Right? So the Lord is not here to destroy the earth, right? He's here to he's here, right, to destroy the wicked, to destroy, right, Esau, Edom, right, the other nations, right? Through what? Through the pestilence, through the division, men being divided, right? And the Lord said, "Wait upon me," right? So that is our job, right, to preach His word, right? Watch, right, unto the end, unto the coming of the end, right, which is the end of this time, of an age, right? See, there was a precept on that I had, end of an age. Let's get that in the book of Revelation, right? This is Revelation Salakia. Look at my other Bible. Revelation. This is Revelation chapter 10. And Revelation 10:6, and swear by him that liveth forever and ever, who created heaven and the things that therein are, and the earth and the things that therein are, and the sea and the things which are therein, that there should be time no longer, right? Which is the end of an age being declared. But in the days of the voice of the seventh angel, when he shall begin to sound, the mystery of God should be finished, as he had declared to his servants the prophets, right? That is the elect declaring the end. There's another precept. Revelation. Slack, yeah. Let's get that real quick. I have it pulled up. Revelation 15:3, right? Let's just get that in the Slack, yeah. Kind of all over the place. Revelation 15:3. And they sang, and they sing the song of Moses, the servant of God, and the song of the Lamb, saying, Great and marvelous are thy works, Lord God Almighty. Just and true are thy ways, thou King of saints. Right? So what is, right? There's the new song, right? Which is right? The word song in the Hebrew is shayar, right? New Hadash is Hadash, meaning something renewed, refresh, right? Like it says in the book of Isaiah, this is that refreshing, but they would not hear, right? So they sang the song of Moses, the servant of God, and the song of the Lamb, right? which Moses represents what, right? Like you read in Revelation chapter 11, right? The two witnesses, right? Which is the law and the prophets, right? But in this case, you have, right, uh, Moses, right, which represents the prophets, right? The Song of the Lamb is what the confirmation of the prophecies, right? A bringing forth of a better understanding, right? Which is what we have, right? Through the Holy Spirit, Rakakwadash, right? Which is the angels, right? Which is, right, the divine inspiration, right? And the Holy Spirit, right? Which is wisdom, right? Which is, right, opening our eyes into this understanding, right? Um, so it says, saying, "Great and marvelous are thy works, Lord God Almighty. Just and true are thy ways, thou King of saints." Revelation 15:4, "Who shall not fear thee, O Lord, and glorify thy name? For thou art holy, for all nations shall come and worship before thee, for thy judgments are made manifest." Right? So let's go into, I was going to do a separate video, but let's just go into it. Revelation 15:3. This is, right, I just typed in Revelation 15:3, Bible Hub commentary. This is from Ellicott's commentary for English readers. "And they sing the song of Moses, the servant of God, and the song of the Lamb. They join their voices to the music of their harps. The song of Moses was a paean of victory over Pharaoh and his host. Israel stood in the margin of the Red Sea and saw the tokens of the overthrow of the great world power of that day," right? Which we're gonna, right, rejoice, right? Lord willing, if we're that number, right? When I say that, I mean the elect, right? Because you have the 144,000, you have the 1/3, right? So when we say of that number, we're talking about the remnant. Right? So the saints will rejoice, those that get delivered, right? Because they're going to be in the firmament, right? And that is the previous verse in Revelation 15:2, right? But that is symbolic, right, for those that right, fulfill the law of the Lord, right? Which is not just the fringes, right? Which is, right, the law is actually a way. The prophecies are a way, and it is all one way, right? Like not having hate in your heart towards your neighbor, right? Not going to whoring after your own lust, right? Obeying the voice of the Lord, right? So it says, and saw the tokens of the overthrow of the great power of that day, right? And that is, right, what the Song of Moses, right, the Song of the Lamb represents, right? The prophecies and those who receive it. So it says, "So these saints stand by the border of the fire-blent sea of glass and sing the song of triumph over the doom of the great world powers of every age. The cases are parallel, the songs are alike, and it would not be out of place," right? So when you have a composition, you have what? The composition. Then you have the instrument, right? Unless you're inspired, right? You can't play the composition correctly, right? So let's just say that the composition is the prophets, right? Or you can even say Old Testament, New Testament, right? If you don't get it, then you're not going to be able to play the instrument correctly, right? And there's, right, there's a third uh, um, um, factor in that equation, which is not mentioned here, right? Which is the divine inspiration, right? So it says and it would not be out of place were the words of that other song of Moses, the man of God, to be heard from those who are made glad according to the days of their affliction. Let's scroll on down. They also sing the song of the Lamb. The apocalypse is full of Christ. The Lamb is the axis on which the world of his scenery moves, right? Which is a spirit of prophecy. He is the key of earth's victory. The victory of the saints is in him. Their song of triumph is of him who put a new song in their mouth, in whom all things are reconciled, right? Which is what we're doing. Like the Apostle Paul said, the ministry of reconciliation. Right? So the new song is not when you see an Edomite, right? You say, you're gonna die, right? We're here to preach the word, to gather the lost sheep, right? We're not here for boot kisses, right? We're not here for the praise of men, right? We're not here to exalt ourselves, right? We are here, right, to gather the lost sheep, right? To tell the nations, right, what is coming, right? But the scriptures say that what? We're supposed to teach those of our people that want to learn, right? So it says, right? So this is what the children of Israel did, right? In the preparation, right? Which is, right, for those who are keeping the Passover to the best of their ability, right? There's a preparation involved, right? There is a hope that that day is coming sooner than later, right? The day of deliverance, right? So it says the meaning here is not that they would sing that identical song, but that as Moses taught the people to celebrate their deliverance with an appropriate hymn of praise, the redeemed would celebrate their delivery and redemption in a similar manner. So you can look the rest up yourself, right? Salakia. Bear with me. So let's go back to the book of Habakkuk, lessons within lessons, right? Let's see what else we got right here. Scribes, right? Here's some other lessons I had laid up. Matthew 5:20. Let's get that real quick. Whoa, Salakia. This is Matthew chapter 5, verse 20. For I say unto you that except your righteousness shall exceed the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees, you shall in no case enter into the kingdom of heaven. Right? So this is not about, right, being over righteous, right? This is about, right, the point of the law and the purpose of why it was established, right? Which it was to point you in a certain direction, to give you a way. That way came with prophecies. That way came with the word of the Lord. That way came with the forwarding of the dispensation of, right, the gospel, right? go back to the book of Habakkuk. Salakia. Let's get that real quick. So it says, Habakkuk 3:8, was the Lord displeased against the rivers? Was thine anger against the rivers? Was thy wrath against the sea? Right? So that's not talking about the nations. You can't say, okay, it says sea, so that's what it's talking about. It's not what it's talking about. That thou didst ride upon thine horses and thy chariots of salvation, right? So this is what the Lord is coming back. He's coming back for the elect, right? And the elect are coming back for the elect, if you can understand, because some of us will perish in persecution, right? But we're going to be first place in the resurrection, meaning in the chariots, right? And like I say plenty of times that, right, we could be coming back in the chariots, those that die in the Lord, and then the Lord, right, can resurrect that body, that earthly body, put that spirit in that earthly body, right, in order to perform his wonder. But the point is, right, that the chariots of salvation, right, that is what we're looking for, right? Like it says in the book of Isaiah, hasten in the day of the Lord, right? Habakkuk 3:9, thy bow was made quite naked, according to the oaths of the tribes, even thy word, Selah. Thou didst cleave the earth with rivers, right? What is the bow of the Lord, right? It says in the book of, let's get that real quick. Selah, Joel, I believe. Joel chapter 2 and verse 11, the Lord shall utter his voice before his army, for his camp is very great. For he is strong to execute the word, for the day of the Lord is great and very terrible, and who can abide in it? Right? What is the camp of the Lord? The camp is what? The Lord stirring up the minds of men, right? The armies of the earth, right? All things which the Lord controls, right? And that is the bow. The bow, right, is the nuclear silos, right? The arrow is the missiles, right? And you have, right, various bows, right? You have, right, the chamber, right, of a gun. That is the bow. The missile is right. So it represents a weapon, right? The weapons of the Lord's indignation, right? So you have in the Hebrew, right? Nakedness represents what? Sin. It also represents, right, pollution, filth, right? So that is what the Lord is going to do, right? He's going to make his weapons, right, which are the armies of the earth, right? Whether it be marine boats, land vehicles, right? All these things, right, is what the Lord is bringing, right? It says according to the oaths of the tribes, right? Because that represents what? Israel going off, right? Making oaths to other gods, worshiping the stars, the heavens, right? And it says even thy word, right? Because that's what, right, Israel disdained, the word of the prophets of old, right? And it also represents, right, the nations, right, not believing in these things that are coming, right? But as you see new revelations coming forth, right, you see that Esau Edom is pushing a mindset in the earth, right? Now the nations are starting to see little and little, right? But they still don't believe, right? Because they look at us and they think we're crazy, right? it's like Habakkuk 3:9, thou didst cleave the earth with rivers, right? So that is what's coming, right? Mountains being moved, uh, uh, the uh, the earth being rose at the scroll, the earth being shaken, right? Habakkuk 3:10, the mountains saw thee, and they trembled, the overflowing of the water passed by, right? Because that is how the Lord defended Israel, right? When they were delivered out of Egypt, right? The waters were moved, right? The chariot shaken, right? The deep uttered his voice and lifted up his hands on high. The sun and the moon stood still in their habitation, right? So there's that sun and the moon again, right? Which represents, right, that reprobate mindset increasing in the earth, right? People bugging out, right? Confusion being in many places, right? So the sun and the moon stood in their habitation, and the light of thine arrows they went, right? So that understanding, right, the elect are going to keep it, right? It's going to stay in their mind, whoever the elect are, and they're going to be delivered. At the light of thine arrows they went forth, and at the shining of thy glittering spear, right? The arrows is what? The ICBM missiles. The glittering spear is the lasers on the chariot, right? Which is says in the book of Luke that those that do not serve me, bring them forth and slay them before my eyes, right? So that's what you're gonna have, the chariots, right, visiting Babylon the Great, right, and shooting down lasers, right? People getting cut in half and right, all kinds of crazy things, right? The elect barely making it, right? Um, Habakkuk 3:13, thou wentest forth for the salvation of thy people, right? Even for salvation with thine anointed, thou woundest the head out of the house of the wicked by discovering unto thee the foundation unto thee neck, Salah, right? The head of the house of the wicked, right, is the head of these governments. Habakkuk 3:14, thou didst strike through with his staves the head of his villages. They came out as a whirlwind to scatter me, right? That represents Esau fighting himself, right, in order to gain power, because that's what Esau does, right? He doesn't give a damn. He'll fight, right? Like Russia, right? Will go up against Ukraine, right? And they're Edomites, but they don't give a damn, right? Because they're men of blood. Their sport is the sword, right? So thou didst strike through with his staves the head of his villages, right? Because the Lord did that, right? They came out as a whirlwind to scatter me, right? Now this is Habakkuk, right? Having flashbacks of his, right? Whatever the case may be, he may have been seeing his past life, right? He may have saw Israel being, right, slain by Esau, right? Whether it was, right, here in the Americas or, in 70 AD, right? He saw all that, right? But he couldn't describe it. He couldn't say, okay, I saw Israel in 70 AD and then I saw that. No, and he was there, right? He right? Their rejoicing was as to devour the poor secretly, right? So you may have seen Esau, right, giving turkeys to Gad, right, and blankets, right, with disease, right? So this is kind of going back and forth in time, which is you read about that in Slovakia. Let's get that real quick. Not Nahum. Salakia. Just looking out the Bible. Salakia. Was it Nahum? Nahum chapter Nahum 2:1. He that dashes in pieces is come up before thy face. Keep the munition, watch the way, make thy loins strong, fortify thy power mightily. For the Lord hath turned away the excellency of Jacob as the excellency of Israel, for the emptiers have emptied them out and marred their vine branches, right? Meaning their seed. The shield of his mighty men is made red. The valiant men are in scarlet, right? Meaning bloodshed. Your chariot shall be with flaming torches in the day of his preparation, and the fir trees shall be terribly shaken, right? Which is that's kind of twofold, right? That kind of goes into right when Esau subdued Israel, and that is talking about right the armies of the earth, right, wreaking havoc, right? Coast Guard troops everywhere, right? You can have Haragma stations, right? You can have right Esau being as a madman, sparing none, right? Um, the chariot shall be with flaming torches, right? That is talking about the chariots of salvation, right? Because ultimately the elect are going to be saved. But verse 4 says, the chariots shall rage in the streets, they shall jostle one against another in the broad ways. Actually, that's talking about the same thing, the deliverance. Nahum 3 and verse 1. Woe to the bloody city, it is full of lies and robbery, the prey departeth not. Here's the point. The noise of a whip, the noise of the rattling of the wheels, and of the prancing horses, and of the jumping chariots. Right? It's talking about slavery, the 19th century, right? The Oregon Trail westward expansion, right? Goes into the gold rush, manifest destiny. The horsemen lifted up both the bright sword and the glittering spear. There is a multitude of slain, great number of carcasses. There is none end of their corpses. They stumble upon their corpses. Right? That's the rise of Esau. Right? And that's what it's talking about here. Right? Salakia. Habakkuk 3:15. Thou didst walk through the sea with thine horses through the heap of great waters. Right? And that's what Esau does. Right? He has his armadas, his warships. Right? And that is what he does. Is he walks through the sea. Right? With his battalions. Right? With his deployments. Right? And the horses, right, are the ships, right? So this is kind of going into right the third woe as well, right? Because that's what Esau is still doing, right? Striking through it, right? Even his own people, right? Their own villages, coming out as a whirlwind to persecute the poor secretly, coming out as a whirlwind, right? Walking through the sea with horses, right? Habakkuk 3:16. When I heard, my belly trembled, my lips quivered at the voice. Rottenness entered into my bones, and I trembled in myself, that I may rest in the day of trouble. Right? Because Habakkuk saw that vision, right? He felt, right, the fear of him being in Jacob's trouble. right? Trembling, right? So it says, when he cometh up unto the people, he will invade them with his troops, right? And that is, right, what is going to happen, right? Um, um, an invasion, right? The armies of the earth, right? One house invading another, right? Those that will not regard their princes nor their governors, like it says in the book of Second Esdras, right? And the chariots, right? So it says, although the fig tree shall not blossom, neither shall fruit be in the vines, the labor of the olive shall fail, and the fields shall yield no meat, the flock shall be cut off from the fold, and there shall be no herd in the stalls. Right? So this represents the failing of the counsels of the wicked, right? Egypt going through pestilence, right? The old Egypt and the new Egypt, right? Many of the vines being destroyed in the wars, sabotage, right? Which is where you see in the days, right? There hardly being a man to till the earth. Habakkuk 3:18, yet I will rejoice in Yahweh, I will joy in the God of my salvation. The Lord God is my strength, and he will make my feet like hinds' feet, and he will make me to walk upon my high places to the chief singer on my string instruments. Right, so that's talking about, right, the end of Armageddon, right? The elect being quickened after they're delivered and brought into their own land, right? And the armies of the earth gathering, and then Yahweh Shai, right, descending with the elect, and the armies of the earth evaporating, right? Or they're gonna get, right, disintegrated, right? Um, so that's pretty much it. Let me see if there's anything else. I'll just leave it for the next video. But let's see what we got right here. Matthew, Revelation. So that's pretty much it. So with that, it's Brother Yatazadak here, Israel. This is the book of Habakkuk, chapter 3. And Lord willing, you ratified. As always, giving all honor and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Kakodash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone. Kwame Yasha'Allah, Abad Ball, Shalom.